Yeah, so thank you everyone. I hope you can hear me properly. My internet connection, I just find out, is not working properly. So this is API development for data analysts or scientists with FastApi. Just if you have any question or something, you can interrupt me. It's fine. So yes, yeah. So this is the list of contents that I expect to cover. I hope I'll be able to cover until the testing part. If not, everything is in the GitHub repo. So we're going to cover just the basic concepts in API development, what are query parameters, and what is how to connect to the database and API authentication. But I decided to just decided in the last minute to just switch API authentication and then moving towards database connection. After that, just in case I'm not able to cover for timing. And yes, I think I'm going to turn the camera off. I think that will help, hopefully. Yep. I don't know if this is helpful. Is it better? Yeah. Well, I hope it's. I hope you can hear me correctly. I hope. But just a little disclosure here. This talk is intended for non-developers and people with limited exposure to software development. So if someone here is from computer science background or has experience with software development, just for you to know, I'm going to say, like, I'm going to generalize just for the purpose of being more like clear, I guess, for people who are not too familiar with these things. So bear that in mind, please. So yeah. Just a little bit about me. I am a data analyst. I work in healthcare, and I am originally from Guatemala. I am now living in Wales in the UK, and I'm very active, sort of active in the Python community. Yes, and just I think something about my internet connection. I'm just so sorry. It is working fine with me, but yeah, I really don't know. This is something that you don't know until you really doing this. Sorry about that. And just I also want to say that I am at the moment I am dealing with some chronic pain. So I hope if you if I'm a little bit zoned out, it would be because of that. I'm doing my best. Sorry. Yeah, let's get started. So once an API, well, just like C words, we can say that an API is how we can communicate during programs. How program A talks with program B. There should be like a way or a common language for these two programs interact, and this is where an API is used. So yeah, it's like a middle point. And an API stands for Application Programming Interface. So an interface, basically, it means something that makes it easier to use. You can say it's a layer on top of some more complex thing. And there are many types of API. There are many types of protocols or language, you can say. But the most common is REST. If you hear about web API, it's most likely that the architecture behind is REST. We're talking about REST. And this is why I'm focusing on this only in the talk, because it is the thing that you will most likely work a lot. So yeah, when we talk about REST, we are talking about this architecture. And architecture is like a set of guidelines on, in this case, how to communicate. This is done particularly with REST using the HTTP protocol. So the HTTP, I think you may have heard it before. This is how the internet, all the web is communicates. It's built upon. That is why REST APIs are also known as web APIs. And REST stands for representational state transfer. So I can see there are people complaining about my voice. I'm sorry, let me just check. Not sure if this is any better. Yep. Could you guys tell me if it's better now? All right. I can see a yes. Good. Sorry about that. This is my hands. I'm so sorry. So I was saying that REST is very, very popular for API development. And why? The reason why is because it works over HTTP, and HTTP is what we normally widely used in the internet. And there are basically two main concepts that we need to know when we're talking about web APIs, which is a request and a response. So request is basically a request or asking for a resource, and a resource can be any type of data, image, whatever, and this is done via a URL. So, for example, if you're working with the weather forecast, for example, they may be an API for NetOffice, for example, and then when you want to request the forecast for London in the next 5 days, then you can access that via a URL via this API. So this is a request, what you are asking, and what you are getting from that request is what we call a response. So it's basically the content that we get, and usually we may use, if you're a data scientist or data analyst, you will use, or maybe perhaps you have already done that. You will use APIs either for requesting or getting new data from new data sets, or you will also need to build an API in order to for example, to expose your model for other people to use your model, you will have to create an API, and you can easily do it using FastApi. And yeah, so just a little bit. So for all of us to be in the same about the same thing, this is a graphical representation of the REST architecture. When you hear things like clients or server, for example, when we say client means that someone who is calling your API. If you're building an API and someone wants to access your API, that someone is a client. When you access an API, you are the client. Like your your API, your piece of code that will call that API will be the client. And the REST API stands in between, right? This is like the way between the communications of these different programs. In this particular image, you consider the REST API or Web API, whatever you will call it. This stands in the middle between the database and the client. So in this case, you can think of someone who wants to say, give me the list of all the employees whose salary is above 15 grand. Okay, so that is a request. It is done not directly to the database. That will be very not too not too smart really, and also imprudent for security issues. So that is why we have the REST API. With our API, we can order or restrict those requests to the database. It's only this in terms of the database. It will only be accessed through one API, like one user, quote unquote. So this is basically where the REST API is functioning in all the architecture of the whole application you're doing. And there you can see here different methods of how this is done. I am focusing on this because this is important, really. This is really important for when you want to build secure APIs. It's really, and also dealing with other people's API. This is really is something useful to know. Although I understand that it can be like boring, but it really need to know this terms. So why Fast API? I'm very sure you have heard Fast API a lot in the last couple of, I don't know, couple of years. So Fast API is a web framework. A web framework, for example, that is also very widely used in Python. It's also Flask and Django as well. But Fast API really is becoming very, very popular. And the reason why is because it is extremely fast. That is hence the name. It's really fast, and it is very, very popular. And I think according to Sebastián Ramirez, he's the guy behind it. It is apparently the third most used and loved framework in Python, and it's really, really comparable. The execution time is comparable with, for example, of a Go with some uh, programs in Go. So it's really, really good. Is the reason why it is like a lot of has a lot of popularity. It is that means that it is and it's as well the community is growing for FastApi. That means that it's a very safe choice for something to learn and something that you may consider to implement yourself. So I really recommend it if you want to use if you want to build an API. Consider using FastApi because really is a safe choice. Microsoft is using it. I think Facebook as well, perhaps. I'm not sure. Microsoft for sure is using it. Google as well. Yeah. So another thing is that it's based on standards, meaning that behind FastApi there are a lot of standards, and meaning it helps you to stay on good standards and save a little bit of work. So really, with FastApi, you don't have to worry about like coding very, all this stuff. Mostly with a set of commands, mostly you will be having all this extra work already done for you. So it's not complicated at all. I find it very simple, and the best thing that I love the most about FastApi is the documentations. I think it is the best documentation I've seen. So really, if you have any question or something, just go to the documentation page. Yeah, it is really, really simple to use, and yeah, that's why FastApi is my safe choice for building APIs. Before FastApi, I was using Flask or something like really simple and minimal stuff. Now FastApi is the choice. So what I was saying about the different methods, I would say first, I don't know if I was if you hear me properly because of the audio issues. I was saying that REST API, also known as web APIs, they they run over HTTP, and HTTP they have some methods, and these are used like you can use these on your API. For example, there are many more methods, but these are some very common, especially the first two. So a get method is a method over HTTP that is used when you want to read or like request a resource. You guys, have you seen before, like for example, when you access, I don't know, HTTP / Google dot whatever, you misspell something, and then you may find a 404 error. This means that there you made a request. You, as the client, you made a request to a URL, and that could not retrieve a resource. It was like not found. That is what you do with your API as well. You want to do that, but without, the contrary to do like, for example, a web application, a web API, it doesn't have like a GUI. It only retrieves data without the graphic. For example, the website. That is only what it's like the backend. Your API could work for. It's part of the backend. So yeah, any questions, just please. So another method is post, that creates a resource and put and delete. No, I'm not this because I can see the time is almost over. Oh, I cannot believe. So this is, you can see here, FastApi, like the hello world of FastApi. Look at how many lines of code there. You import here FastApi, really, and you can install it with clippings of FastApi. And you initiate the app. This is basically a FastApi API. And this, what you're seeing here, you're defining a route or the endpoint where the user will access your API. And this is basically saying, when the user goes to the domain, for example, domain.com/, then execute this function. And this function takes no parameters, and it's also using the get method, the get HTTP method, and it's not receiving anything, no parameters, but is returning a message. This dictionary in Python is automatically converted to JSON. This is part of FastAPI, so you don't have to worry about that. Everything is automatically, by default, returned to JSON. So this is very simple, you can see. And what you may want to receive from your client, you may want to receive some information, for example. In the forecasting example, when I want, say for example, I want to request all the forecast for London in the next 5 days, then I will have, in my API, I will have something similar to this. And for example, this is saying items / and this, between these two brackets, this means that it's going to receive something. This something is here. We're saying it is an integer, and it could be what I'm going to return can be something, string or nothing. So this is here. Basically, I return this. Of course, you have, this is where you can put some of your logic. You communicate with your database. You ask that question. You retrieve everything here. You will retrieve. But it's basically how you can get some information from the client and then use it in your function to return something. And API authentication, have you find some, for example, when you log into Google, you sometimes you have to put your email and your password, right? So behind that, there is a sort of there's a way of authentication. You can do exactly the same with your own APIs, because you don't want to just leave your API open for everyone to consume it. No, you have to limit for security purposes. You want to limit the access of your API. You can do it in very different ways. This is one way to do it, and it is with API keys. Look as well. It doesn't take many lines of code. It's only here you can store. Obviously, this is only for just for example purposes. But you want to save your API keys in your database or in an environment variable. Yeah, you have your API here. This is a function where you're saying, is the API the API that I received, is it here contained there? And if yes, then you proceed. If not, you return an error. Then this is your API. This is really your API, what the user is going to access. The user is going to access this URL, and then you do some code here, and you return the answer after validating this. This is really as well how are you going to consume it if you want to consume this, and from another API. And when you access FastAPI, if you use FastAPI, it's really very easy to test locally, because what you're seeing here is all the documentation generated automatically for you, and this is something really nice.